Today we are going to read a humorous story. That is another type of genre. A humorous story has funny characters and events. The setting is where and when a story happens. This story happens one day in a small village. Now, remember when we talk about setting, this tells us it happens one day in a small village. Let's read to find out. Maybe we can identify where the village is, what time of day this story is happening. Is it happening at night or in the morning? Or maybe we'll find out the day or the time. Also, let's pay attention to the season. Maybe we can figure out the season. Maybe the kids are in school. Maybe they're out swimming. I don't know. Let's find out. When the Pigs Took Over. This story is by Arthur Dorros and illustrated, the person who does the pictures, illustrated by Diane Greenseed. The pictures and the illustrations in this story, if you'll notice, are very bright. They're very colorful. Notice the characters' faces. Maybe make some predictions about what you think they might be feeling, their emotions they might be having. All of the pictures are very bright. Kind of fun to look at. Oh, now we have pigs in our story. Oh no, something's happened over here, I can tell. How can you tell that something is happening in this picture? Again. Ooh, this story's a little bit longer than what we've been reading. Pay attention to the characters' faces in the pictures. And again. And that's the end of our picture walk. Now, let me go back to the beginning of the story, and we're going to begin reading. Now, in this story, there are lots of words that are going to be bolded because they're in Spanish. So I'm going to quickly go over those as I read through this first time. When we go through it the second time, I'll be sure to slow down just a little bit so you can remember what those words mean. When the Pigs Took Over by Arthur Dorros. Before we begin, we're going to set a purpose. Don Carlos wants more food for his restaurant. Find out what he and his brother Alonzo get. So that's the purpose today. Don Carlos wants more food. We're going to find out what he and his brother Alonzo get, okay? Alonzo was little. Don Carlos was big. He was Alonzo's big brother, much older and much, much bigger. Alonzo had one hat. Don Carlos had 7, and he wore them all at once. Mas, said Don Carlos as he found 3 more. Oh no, thought Alonzo. More. So if you look down here, mas in Spanish means more. So he's saying more, Don Carlos. And that means that he wants more hats. Okay? Don Carlos had lots of ideas about more, especially at his restaurant. Don Carlos had the only restaurant in the village. The village is a small town. He served huge, sizzling, steaming plates of food, bowls of food, platters of food that people liked eating. Mas? Don Carlos always asked. So he's saying more. Sizzling and steaming, check it out down here, means hot. And platters of food means big dishes of food. And he's always asking, do they want more? Alonzo liked playing his violin at the restaurant. So can you identify Alonzo in the picture? Magnifico, villagers cheered. That means magnificent or wonderful in Spanish. Of all the villagers, none could play music as well as Alonzo. Mas, said Don Carlos, or more. People were happily listening to the music and eating. But Don Carlos was thinking about more foods that he could add to the restaurant menu. That's the list of food that the restaurant has for the people to eat. Alonzo read that in a big, fancy restaurant in the city, people ate snails. Caracoles, said Don Carlos. Snails! So down here in Spanish, Caracoles means snails. There were lots of snails in the village. Alonzo helped gather snails. Soon there were pails of snails, baskets of snails, wheelbarrows of snails, right? Small carts. This is a wheelbarrow. Mas, said Don Carlos. They looked for more snails. Okay, I want you to predict. Look at the pictures. How will the brothers stop the snails? Let's find out. Snails crawled out of baskets, pails, and wheelbarrows in the restaurant kitchen. The snails were looking for food. The snails ate and ate and ate. They ate every blade of grass, every plant and flower in the village. So blade is piece. They ate every piece of grass. ¿Qué hacemos? The villagers cried, wondering what to do. ¿Qué hacemos is what do we do? What do we do? The villagers cried, wondering what to do. Then up here, another Spanish word, pájaros. Mrs. Muggle's guessing how to say that. Pájaros means birds in Spanish. Alonzo said, birds! He had seen birds eat snails. He threw corn and breadcrumbs to attract the birds. At first, only a few birds landed. So breadcrumbs is just the small pieces, and they threw them in the air. You can see the breadcrumbs. They threw them in the air to attract the birds, and then landed means they came. Mas, said Don Carlos. What does mas mean again? Think about that. The villagers tossed more crumbs. Birds flapped in tree branches, fluttered on rooftops, even landed on people's heads. The birds started to eat snails. They raced across roads, finding snails to eat. Soon there were no snails, but birds were everywhere, squawking and screeching and scratching, scraw, kia, crack, crack. So squawking and screeching means they're making those loud noises. Birds and what they dropped covered everything. ¿Qué hacemos? Cried the villagers. Do you remember what ¿qué hacemos means? What do we do? Then here's another Spanish word up here at the top. Puercos. Puercos means pigs in Spanish. Puercos, said Alonzo. Pigs! He had seen pigs chase birds away. Alonzo and the villagers rounded up pigs, or they brought the pigs to town. Down here it tells us that. Pigs ran, snorting and grunting, right, making noises at the birds. Grump! But the birds kept flapping through the village. Mas, said Don Carlos. So, let's keep going. Will the brothers plan new work? Let's find out. Alonzo asked Don Carlos if he was sure he wanted more. Sí, más, Don Carlos said. Sí in Spanish means yes, so he's saying yes, more. Large pigs, small pigs, pigs with spots and pigs with none were brought from the nearby countryside, were brought from farms near town. The pigs snuffed and snapped and squealed, which means they made a lot of noise. They scared away the birds and then began to eat. They ate everything in front of their snouts. Pigs clattered into kitchens, trotted into Don Carlos's restaurant, tipped over tables, tore up the village looking for more. So their snouts are their noses. And when they clattered into the kitchens, means they bumped into the things in the kitchen as they ran. And then they tore up the village looking for more, just means they destroyed their village. Don Carlos began to jump and shout, trying to chase away the pigs. But the pigs were everywhere. ¿Qué hacemos? Everyone wondered what to do. Right here, música with an exclamation mark. Música means music. Alonzo said, music. He had heard a story about a boy who played music and led rats out of a village. Alonzo played his violin. The villagers brought other instruments, right? Things to make music. Scrick, skronk, kabloom, pump, pam, pump, pam. Terrible sounds came from the instruments. The sounds were bad. They were awful. They were horrible. The pigs kept running wild. Don Carlos put his hands over his ears. The music was more than even he could stand or even he could listen to. No mas, he cried. Mas, Alonzo shouted to the villagers. The villagers marched through the streets playing louder and louder. Hearing the terrible sounds, pigs tried to get away. The pigs ran fast and far until there was not a pig in sight, or all the pigs were gone. Don Carlos uncovered his ears. He looked at how much the village had been destroyed. No más, he said sadly, right? He's saying no more. He realized that more was not always better. So he understood finally that more was not always better. Sí, más, said Alonzo. He wanted more. Practice for the band. So in the evening, in a cozy village, in a small or comfortable part of town, in a cozy village restaurant that serves a lot but does not serve snails, a band can be heard playing or practicing more.